In the dusty equipment barn of Garrett Ranch in Rolling Hills, Kansas, 6-year-old Annie Grace Walker faced an unexpected challenge. Ranch owner Frank Garrett, frustrated by a broken hay baler that had stumped 3 experienced mechanics for 2 weeks, made a sarcastic dare. He challenged Annie to fix the machine that threatened to ruin the harvest and bankrupt the operation. What unfolded defied all expectations about age and ability, as Annie's surprising expertise revealed not only a mechanical solution, but also a hidden conspiracy tied to her late mother's classified research, transforming the ranch and its community's understanding of who deserves to be heard. The morning sun casts long shadows over the wheat fields of Rolling Hills, painting the golden stalks in shades of amber. Annie pressed her nose against the window of her father Cole's weathered Ford pickup, watching the grain sway in the August breeze. Her dark eyes, unusually perceptive for a child, studied the landscape with a quiet intensity. "Daddy, why do the wheat heads look so heavy today?" she asked, her soft Kansas drawl carrying a curiosity beyond her years. Cole glanced at her through the rearview mirror, noting the familiar focus that reminded him of his late wife, Marie. "Harvest time's coming, sweetheart. Those heads are full of grain, ready to be cut. That's why we need to fix Mr. Garrett's baler today." Annie nodded, understanding the stakes. Living next to the sprawling Garrett Ranch had taught her that broken equipment meant lost crops, and lost crops meant hardship for families. The truck rumbled down a gravel road toward the ranch's 2,000 acres of farmland, dotted with cattle and windmills. Cole, a former Army Corps of Engineers soldier, had worked for Frank Garrett for 8 years, a job that stabilized his life after military service and the loss of Marie. "Stay close today," he told Annie as they neared the ranch gate. "The barn's busy with folks working on the baler. Find a quiet spot with your puzzle book." Annie clutched her backpack, filled with coloring books and puzzles, but also hiding a notebook where she sketched machine parts and mechanical observation cuts she kept from adults who might dismiss her as imaginative. At the ranch headquarters, the equipment barn buzzed with tension. Cole parked among scattered vehicles, and Annie watched as men emerged from the barn, their frustration palpable. She recognized Tyler Ace Murphy, skilled at complex repairs, and Clint Morrison, the seasoned ranch hand. Frank Garrett stood apart, his sharp gestures betraying his agitation. The $4 million hay baler, meant to cut and bundle hay efficiently, sat idle, endangering the season's profits. Annie slipped out of the truck, drawn by the voices and the glimpse of the massive yellow and green baler. Inside the barn, she overheard Frank's frustration. "I don't want excuses. If this machine isn't running by next week, we lose the hay crop." Cole tried to steer Annie away, but her curiosity held firm. "I want to see the machine," she said, her eyes scanning its hydraulic lines. Frank noticed her and frowned. "Cole, I thought we agreed no distractions today." Cole defended her, but Frank snapped, "Kids don't belong around heavy machinery." Annie met his gaze, undeterred. "I know it's a John Deere 568-round baler with PowerTech hydraulics, and it's been broken for 2 weeks while the hay gets too mature." The barn fell silent, stunned by her knowledge. Tyler laughed, not mockingly, and asked, "How'd you know that?" Annie replied simply, "I read, and I watched things." Frank, skeptical, challenged her further. "So, you think you know what's wrong with a $250,000 machine 3 mechanics couldn't fix?" Annie didn't flinch. "If the hydraulics aren't working, it's likely a pressure loss or a control valve issue." Clint pressed her, intrigued. "What kind of reasons?" Annie listed possibilities: fluid contamination, seal failure, pump issues, or a clogged filter, prompting surprised glances. Frank's tone turned sharp. "Since you know so much, maybe you'd like to take a look," Cole protested, but Annie stepped forward. "If you want me to look, I'll look." The dare hung in the air, a test laced with dismissal. Annie approached the baler, her small frame dwarfed by its bulk. She began a methodical inspection, starting with a visual sweep. "First, you look for what doesn't belong," she said. Softly, her voice carrying in the barn's acoustics, she paused near a hydraulic line, noting a newer coupling. Tyler confirmed it was replaced recently due to a leaking seal. Annie moved to the control panel, its warning lights glowing red. "Can someone turn on the hydraulic pump?" she asked. Frank scoffed, but Cole activated the pump, which whined to life. Annie listened intently, eyes closed, deciphering the sounds. After 30 seconds, she signaled to stop it. "The pump's fine. Pressure's building, but it's not reaching the cylinders." "There's a blockage," Tyler protested. "Checked the lines," but Annie pointed to the inline filter housing. "If it's clogged, it restricts flow even if pressure builds." The men exchanged looks. Maintenance logs confirmed the filter was overdue for replacement. Tyler retrieved tools, but Annie, citing her small size, slipped under the machine to inspect the housing. Emerging with grease on her shirt, she reported, "It's tight, like something's pressing from the inside." Tyler struggled to remove the housing, revealing a black metallic substance clogging the filter. Not normal debris, but deliberate contamination. "Someone put that in there," Annie said gravely. Frank's face paled. "You're saying someone sabotaged my equipment?" Annie nodded. "That kind of contamination doesn't happen by accident." The word sabotage shifted the mood to suspicion. Tyler estimated a 3 to 4 day flush of the entire hydraulic system. Time they didn't have. Annie proposed a faster solution: bypass the contaminated sections with a clean circuit for essential functions. Tyler called it jury rigging, but Annie insisted it's engineering a workaround. She outlined needing 50 feet of hydraulic line, quick disconnect fittings, 2 inline filters, and an auxiliary pump. The adults, stunned by her precision, began to question her knowledge's source. "My mama taught me," Annie said, her words carrying unexpected weight. The mention of her mother, Marie Walker, silenced the barn. Cole's face tightened. He rarely spoke of Marie, who died when Annie was 3. Isabella, the foreman, revealed Marie's background in agricultural engineering and classified government projects. She worked on experimental systems for sustainable farming, Isabella said, glancing at Cole, who admitted Marie was part of a military program for rapid food production in hostile environments. Frank, impatient, refocused on the repair. Annie estimated the bypass could be set up in 6 hours with the right parts. Tyler and Clint drove to Rolling Hills Feed and Supply, returning with supplies. As they worked, Annie's precise instructions adjusting pressure regulators to avoid seal damage astounded them. Her knowledge, she admitted, came partly from dreams where Marie explained complex systems, a claim that deepened the mystery. Sheriff Karen Reed arrived, summoned by Isabella to investigate the sabotage. Examining the contaminated filter, she noted its sophistication, suggesting a targeted act. Cole hinted at a connection to Marie's work, mentioning her discovery of stolen technology before her suspicious death in a car accident. Karen, aware of Marie's classified projects, suspected Annie's knowledge made her a target. Black SUVs pulled into the ranch, federal agents led by Agent Webb and Dr. Chen. They revealed Marie's involvement in projects like Harvest Moon, designed for emergency agriculture. Annie's abilities, inherited through means they couldn't explain, mirrored her mother's. As they spoke, 3 vehicles approached the ranch, signaling surveillance by unknown parties, possibly tied to Marie's betrayer, Dr. Marcus Kellerman, a former colleague now selling classified technology. Annie, sensing the danger, proposed confronting Kellerman to convince him she wasn't a threat. Cole and Sterling refused, but Annie insisted on showing him her modifications to the Baylor, designed to work only for humanitarian purposes. As federal helicopters approached, Kellerman, pressured by Annie's moral clarity and the arriving reinforcements, signaled his team to withdraw. "This isn't over," he warned, but Annie replied, "I'll fix what's broken when it comes." The Baylor hummed to life, its bypass circuit functional. Annie's modifications ensured it could process the hay crop, saving the ranch. As federal teams secured the perimeter, Director Sterling asked Annie to document her techniques, but she prioritized the harvest. "Some things are more important," she said, as the sun set over the Kansas field. Annie stood in the barn doorway, her small figure silhouetted against the golden landscape. The immediate crisis was resolved, but her knowledge made her a permanent target. Yet, she'd proven that courage and wisdom, like engineering, could be inherited. The harvest would begin at dawn, and Annie would ensure the machines worked. Because that's what Walker women did: fix what was broken, no matter who was watching.